So in this video, what I want to talk to you about is how to create a financial transformation in your life. And this is a strategy that some of the world's most renowned companies have used. And to illustrate this point, then how do you actually make it happen? We will take an example of the legendary CEO of General Electric, and his name is Jack Welch. And when Jack Welch was appointed in General Electric, the revenues were at a certain level. You will have to check what the revenue levels were when he entered. And he started to set up a system whereby each employee is measured based on their performance. And if they are below a certain level of performance, the company would basically fire them. And the goal of this whole exercise was that in any organization, 80% of the revenue is generated by 20% of the employees. We know about the 80-20 rule. And these 20% of the people are very crucial for the company to identify, because we don't know which 20% of the people are producing 80% of the revenue, and which 20% of that 20% is producing 80% of the revenue, and which 20% of that 20% is producing 80% of the revenue. So once you do this exercise of zooming in as to where the money is and who's producing the money, you can identify individuals who are the top performers and the highest earners. And what he would do is he would then start firing these people who are basically low performers, and what that would do is reduce the cost of the company, and he would reinvest that money into marketing or any revenue producing activity. And then more demand would be created, and then they would hire more employees, and then he would repeat the same methodology of firing people. So what he was doing is he just bringing in more and more people, and then sorting out the most cream population. And then what you have is the cream of the cream of the cream. And then as a result, there's a financial revolution that gets created in a company, and the company grew some obnoxious amount, like hundreds of billions of dollars. And it was the fastest growth at that time, and Jack Welch was arguably the best CEO in the world at that time, and he took General Electric on a whole new level. And this is the same principle that I want you to use in your life. And our whole time is the resource. In a company, the money is the resource. The salary that the company is paying these employees is the resource that they have, and they have to manage it. So that, and in return of that, for that salary, the employees are giving their time to the company. And so the company just reorganized and restructured their entire operation on a constant basis. And the strong is replaced by the weak, and this cycle keeps happening, and then the company keeps growing up. Well, the same happens in your life also. You have to view yourself as a company. Your bank account has to be viewed as your company bank account. And if that account doesn't have a lot of money flowing in, you have to look at where you are spending your time and how you are spending your time. And if most amount of your time is spent with friends and family, then that's a non-revenue generating activity. And you have to measure people in your life with a certain standard. Just like Jack Welch created a standard by which he would measure employees, you would have to create a standard, a financial standard of each person that you come in contact with. When I got trained with Dan Pena, he had provided a weekly report that we had to follow. And in that report, what we had to do is we have to list out our goals, and then we had to list out who we met every single day from morning to night, and message chat, email, conversation, bumped into someone, all of that. And then which one of these people were linked to any of these goals. And if they were not linked, then you just wasted your time. Because we tend to create partnerships and relationships and friendships based on proximity. We don't create relationships based on a standard, a standard that would get us to our goals. We get into a relationship because they were in our neighborhood, because they were in our class growing up in school, in our university, and that's the basis of the relationship. It's proximity, because they were around, so you got into a friendship or a relationship with them, and these people kind of stay with us for the rest of our lives, and they take our time and they give sometimes little, sometimes nothing. So you got to have an evaluation where you measure what value do they bring out to my life and what do they take away from me. And you will be shocked if you measure the people in your life from this standard, because you would realize you are actually being exploited. Your time is being exploited. And I did an evaluation of this. I made a list of all my friends, and I started to look at what have these guys actually done for me and what have I done for them also. You have to look at both. And I had done significantly more than what I was receiving. And they were not at all linked to my goals. In fact, if I'm serious about pursuing my goals, then almost nobody is going to be in my life in 5-10 years from now. So what am I doing spending time with them? And it was extremely difficult because the relationships, again, tend to be based on proximity or love. But if you have financial goals, then it has to be based on finance. It's just the way it is. And you could have some relationships that you really value, girlfriend, parents, siblings, whatever. But a large chunk of friends are actually unnecessary and they don't contribute anything to your life. In fact, they take away. And I could only identify one friend who was kind of like neutral. He didn't take anything much, he didn't give anything much. And I liked him a lot for that. But most of them were just sucking away value and not giving anything in return. So if I was a company, I would have gone bankrupt. And that's the reason I was in a very bad position. It was because my whole time was spent with friends. So transformation begins when you start transforming your environment. And financial transformation begins when you extract yourself from a personal environment and put yourself in a professional environment where massive amounts of growth can happen. And for me, that was a career in mergers and acquisitions. The moment I positioned myself in that career and the moment I removed all my friends, even though I felt lonely, even though I missed them, even though it was heartbreaking for me to even think like this, for me to even measure them against a standard, my whole mind cleared up. Suddenly, I wasn't worried about my actions because I would always have to think, what would my friends think? I would always have had this at the back of my mind. What would my friends think if I speak very eloquently in English? What would my friends think if I dress up really well? What would my friends think? So this thing is at the back of your head. And what would my family think? That's another thing that was a dominant part of my life. And if my actions are designed to please these people, well, they're not doing much for me. So why would I do that? So I had to ruthlessly, just like Jack Welch, remove and cut off all kinds of people from my life who were not related to my goal. Now, one of my friends was related to my goal and he came along and he does exactly what I'm doing, mergers and acquisitions. So he's also into buying companies and both of us are completely in sync. And we bounce ideas and we grow together. Now that's a different kind of a relationship. It's very goal-oriented. It's very outcome-dependent. And I told him, the day our futures are not aligned, I would have to let you go. And he was shocked, and I said, that's just what's going to happen. It's not that I would do it. This life would just take us into different direction. So if you want to be with each other, we got to make sure that we are aligned on the same pathway. Our ships must sail in the right direction, as Don Lucchese says in Godfather 3. So the ships must sail in the same direction. And so that's really the principle here, because time is a resource, and what you will use to create money is time. And that's one of the foundation aspects of financial transformation. And you can look at any person who ever became financially successful. They had to leave their current environment and go to a new environment and form new relationships and alliances. And these new alliances are not based on proximity. They are based on finance. They are financial alliances. And you got to create a lot of financial relationships. Once you get rid of your personal relationships, you got to increase your financial relationships. And I know it sounds very distasteful, but that's just the reality of it. The sooner we understand, the better. It took me a while, probably a couple of years, for me to be able to come to terms with it. And I was depressed, I was sad, I was lonely. But then suddenly I found a whole different energy to perform, because my time was freed up. And a lot of the goals that I had written down 10 years ago almost immediately started to happen because I did that. And it doesn't matter if you suffer in a room, it's fine. You will find something productive to do, and ultimately you will get out of the situation, because now you have this access to so much of time that you could use to produce something valuable, rather than just chatting away with people who are not doing anything. So that's one thing that you do, is you measure what they are taking from me and what they are giving me. Just a simple audit. What they are taking from me, what they are giving me. So what they are taking away is my time, and what are they giving me in return? And do I even value that? So, and that's a little evaluation that one must do. And you will find that most of the people in your life do not actually belong there. And you will find some relationships which are extremely valuable. And those are the relationships you don't want to let go. Like your mother, father, maybe not, or maybe one friend. Like those few relationships are the real ones. And the rest, you built them strategically to waste time. Okay, and we do this. So once you identify those relationships, you cut the cords, and what you have is space. My mentor Dan Pena said the most amount of money he made was the 5 to 7 years where he was away from his family and friends and neighborhood. Like he was locked in a room and he was just working. And he didn't have obligation to come back home. He didn't have obligation to go to a meeting, birthday, marriage, and so many occasions that frankly do not move you forward at all. And that's an essential step, and that's just the foundational step. And typically after that, you've got to get the information that's going to put you in a position where you can be financially super successful. So then you get the access to the information, and now you have the foundation to act and to actually start building strategic alliances, developing projects, developing business plans, identifying business partners that you could collaborate with, making a lot of phone calls. You wouldn't have time to do all of this unless you did that first step. And then getting into business partnerships with people, making a lot of phone calls, going into places that you wouldn't go alone at times, and getting a suit and actually being the businessman. And then you will have to create action plan, strategy, positioning, and all of that. And then it just continues, where the financial relationships keep increasing and the non-financial relationships keep reducing. And the financial relationships, the stakes of the financial relationships also keep increasing. So I started off with dealing with a couple of $1,000 to then couple of $1 million to then couple of, like $10 million ticket size. These are the ticket sizes that I was dealing with. So there was a point in my life where I wasn't talking to anybody who wasn't a $1 million prospect for me. Either it was a banker who could give me $1 million to buy a business, or it was a business owner who could give me, sell me his business for $1 million. And then I realized that was too small. So it became 5 million, then 10 million, and then 25 million. And I started to look at bigger and bigger stakes. And before you know it, I was surrounded by high-powered individuals, and all my friends and family and everybody from my previous environment was gone. And I was surrounded by these high-profile figures. And it was a little bit of a mind fuck, because I looked around and I was like, wow, who am I? My whole identity has shifted. My whole environment has shifted. My thought process has shifted. My mental state has shifted. My emotions have shifted. My knowledge base has shifted. My skill set has shifted. My character has shifted. My bank account has shifted. The amount of information I have access to has shifted. The level of power that I have has shifted. And boy, all I can see is the millions all around me. And there are opportunities after opportunities after opportunities. And that's the position that you cultivate. To do that and to get to your dream position, you have to let go your current position. And that's how the transformation happens. And you will go through a character transformation. You would go through a transformation of your whole environment. And that is a precondition for financial success. And that's what I wanted to leave you with. And I'll talk to you soon.